Welcome back to Cinema Corner. My name is Alex. This is my co-host Josh. It's just us two today doing the review for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. It just wrapped up as of this recording. The finale was yesterday or the day before. So it's very fresh in our minds, at least the finale is. I figured you said you were kind of like waiting until towards the end and then you finally binge watched most of it. Me, for example, though, I was going week by week. So, there's certain times where I definitely miss the Netflix model of just dropping all 8 or 9 episodes at once. But, you know, it does in some aspects keep me more invested and wanting to come back to it. So, I guess for you to start off with overall for the show before we dive deep into each episode or like the highlights of this season, how did you feel overall about season 2 of Born Again?
Yeah, I think I gotta agree with the audience score that Rotten Tomatoes is giving it. It's a significant jump and improvement from the first season. To give you perspective, what the audience is feeling like, season 1 got a 78, season 2 right now is at 87. So right off the bat, I mean, it's a clear sign that everybody kind of feels that same feeling of it felt like they had a direction this time around. They felt like it was their show and it wasn't like this weird transformation period that was happening from Netflix to Disney, and it was struggling kind of with that season 1 of its identity of how are we going to deal with these characters, kind of also the actors getting back into the groove of things. So it definitely was a solid season. And I guess we kind of just jump in more so the pros, what we really liked, what we didn't like, because people have already seen it if they're watching this. So we don't have to recap the episodes, but I'll kind of get started with what I liked and what I didn't like. And I'll also give you my perspective of, since I binged it, I didn't wait like you did. With the binge, gotta say, first 2 episodes had me worried. I the first 2 episodes were definitely slow, and it almost felt like they're a bit filler-esque like episodes. And I'm one that I am a pro filler episode guy. I mean, we talked about, like, for example, the boys just did 2 back-to-back filler episodes, and we enjoyed them. So you can do filler episodes great, and they are needed for sure. But they kind of started off with them feeling that way. I was definitely worried, but my goodness, the middle section of this show just was a home run. Episode 3 through, how can you even send it to 6? I really would say 3 to 5 was the peak of the show, and then the finale definitely was strong, and I was back into it. It felt like the fights were planned and choreographed way better than season 1. And honestly, you can make an argument this was some of the best fights in the entire series was this season,
With
even better than what we got.
Yeah, in the OG.
Yeah, then Netflix. Yes, because this was planned. The logic too, because always an issue when it comes to a character, especially like Daredevil. You can even see this with Batman, of where this isn't some guy with supernatural powers necessarily, of super strength. If he gets shot, he's gonna die. And they did way better this season than they have ever before with his fights, when especially dealt with guns. There was not, I can't even name a moment, because it always drags me out of it, mainly because of John Wick, where you notice the guy just being dumb as hell with his gun, and it's like, no, you should have been fucking shot there. They planned everything immensely better this season, and they also added where it felt like this season had love with it, with the cinematic shots of both with the fights and just the characters lining up, like the amount of times that Kingpin just lining him up with a door scene just to show his powered impacts.
Just like the presence.
He just looked fun. Yeah. You felt everything. It really did feel like I was 16 again, saying, what the hell is this Daredevil show on Netflix? And that's what it was. There was so much love, so much care to it, that's episode 3 was where that began for me.
Yeah, I had that down too.
Back into it. Yeah, because I even texted Blake. 'Cause let's be honest here. Blake is kind of the hater of the
Yeah.
series, right?
Well, it's mainly
And I was
because of
like,
the
dude,
main character. It's not necessarily anything in
yeah.
particular. It's just I don't know what it is about, blind people or people with some sort of disability. He can't suspend disbelief. He can suspend disbelief for Spider-Man, a guy getting bit by
Even
a
though I feel like
spider.
Daredevil is totally fine in my books with his powers and
I know
abilities.
it's like
It makes total sense to me. But yeah, yeah. Either way, we know Blake's like that. I remember I texted him. I was like, God, man, first two episodes, I might be on the same boat with you about this series because I was like, damn. And then, like I said, once I got that binging through 3 through 5, I was like, wow, it was phenomenal. But hey, I'll open to you. I know I got plenty more pros, but you said you were feeling the same way. What did it feel for you when you got to that midsection?
Yeah. Okay. So let me just briefly. I think it for sure it started at 3 because I have it down specifically. Episode 3, Oner in the prisoner camp. That's like when it all started, and that was episode 3. But I do want to say because for some reason, everyone kind of felt this way, including critics. Because I think for the most part, I think if I'm not mistaken, episode 1 was okay. Like, I think it kind of landed in that 8 range, and then like the lowest rated episode of the season was episode 2. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? Had this had been like overall slower throughout, I think I would have had a problem with it. But I also don't mind that it did start a little bit slower. But then at the same time, looking back at my notes, episode 1, if I'm not mistaken, ends with the fight in Cherry's apartment, and he's like
Yep.
beating up on the what do you call it, the anti vigilante task force, and he gets unmasked. And then it ends with Bullseye saving him. So it's like, yeah, overall the entirety of that episode was overall kind of slower, but there was like moments of like, some sort of positive stuff that happened. So and I also liked that the reason why that happens is because Cherry starts to have a heart attack and he starts getting like war flashbacks for Foggy from the first season when Bullseye kills him and hearing his heartbeat. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And then obviously Bullseye saves him with the knives and stuff like that. And then episode 3 or 2, to be honest with you, I kind of agree. It really, I feel like it kind of slowed down after that. I felt like it was like leading up to something to just like start that run that 3 kind of had, and 2 definitely kind of like slowed it down a bit. But other than that, I mean, like the first episode was a good kind of like welcome back to this show that we're now fully like, this is from start to finish our show now. So I felt like it was like a good kind of like warming up to again. Whereas 2 kind of slowed it a little bit too much, but 3 for sure that oneer in the camp is that was insane because like he was going there for one specific reason, and that was to find the weapons because he put the watch in there and he knew it was in the room to his left, and he ended up hearing all the people's pleas for help in the right, and because of his
Mm-hmm.
character he's like, yeah, no, I know this is what we came for, but this is what was the right thing to do. So not only does he like fight off the entire anti-vigilante task force in that like, I don't know, four square kind of like prisoner camp thing. I still don't know how they actually managed to do all that. Obviously, there's like some like fake oneer where they kind of stitch and stuff like that, but I thought it was fantastic incorporating swordsman, which we got like a little bit of tease of in Hawkeye, and he was in season 1 as like more of like his alter ego as Jack Duquesne, and he wasn't like
Yeah.
so involved, but getting him a little bit of a spotlight to help in a wonder, which I don't think Daredevil has ever had, like, up until that point. It's always been just him versus a entire lobby of fucking bad guys. Whereas now he had like another element to it to make it more unique and its own thing. And I thought they did that wonder amazingly. The one thing from that shot from that wonder that like stood out to me, well, two things, was when he throws the baton and the camera follows the baton to the guy and he gets like hit in the face. I thought that was
Yeah.
brilliantly done. And then, bro, that when he like throws it up in the air and it like hits that like pipe and it's just smoky and he starts to just fucking like pick them off one by one. He like shoots it
Yep.
out, drags them across like the whole thing. I thought that was just amazing.
That's a perfect example of what I was saying before of like them handling weapons so damn good this season, and it's showing Matt's experience, his fighting experience was on display at its best.
Yeah.
100%. That was a great example you brought up. Yeah, I totally agree. That was
Like what
man.
better way to even the odds for people that can actually see that have weapons? Oh, let's just throw fucking smoke, and he knows it's up there,
Mhm.
so he breaks it, and they just start shooting, but they don't actually hit anything, and that's how he gets away with that. I thought that was done perfectly. The ending, of course, to episode 3, where Fisk is like, you know what to do, and then Powell's like, okay, boss. And he blows up the ship. That was insane. I was like, oh my God, this is, we're in store for something great. And like you said, I completely agree. 3 through like 5 was just on another level. I don't know if you want to go into specifics because episode 4 opens up hot too with Bullseye in the diner. I mean,
Yeah.
what a sequence. I don't know if you have anything specific for
Yeah, yeah,
that.
we can. Yeah, I mean, I'll say what my pros about Bullseye is that I think he had a cool little revival. You know, I didn't really care how his introduction was, to be honest, with season 1 and how they're gonna make that work, or the fact that he lived from what we saw from season 1, and then them kind of being like, okay, writers, we're gonna make this kind of some spirituality thing with him for him surviving, and also it being kind of a fun way to still once again challenge Matt's morality and his beliefs, which I think for a lot of characters with that kind of no kill rule, it is hard for writers to make you still care. And that has definitely been the strength with every single season with Daredevil is they do it great. They just find a way to keep it fresh. And Bullseye was one of the ways to keep it fresh this season, amongst many other ways. And yeah, I enjoyed Bullseye's return in this season. He They made his fighting scenes more unique to his actual style too. Definitely enjoyed that because you're getting flashbacks to season 3 with Netflix Daredevil. That it just felt like him again. It was just such a nice balance of paying homage to what was of old and making it their own thing, and they killed it with Bullseye. And that scene was so fun. Him even just putting up his symbol too.
With the ketchup bottle, I was like, yeah, this, and
Yeah.
they like lean into like the playfulness, like the, I guess, the sadistic playfulness to him, because there is something clearly wrong with him, and we know that from season 3, and I like that they acknowledge those things. But he does have a fucked up sense of morality, like very polar opposite to Matt, and I like how they
Mhm.
play with that, and obviously all that comes to head at the end of this episode, because not only did we get an explosive intro, because that was all before the title card even hits,
Yep.
which is insane. But then this episode was also the Fisk boxing match, which was like,
Yeah.
holy shit! Like, okay,
Okay.
but obviously to everyone is like, why is he doing this? Why is he in this boxing match? But then like as the episode goes on, you learn, oh no, this is a kill box. This is meant to draw out the two vigilantes, specifically Poindexter and Matt, because obviously he knows that he'll figure out that Poindexter will not resist a public appearance for Fisk just out in the open, and he knows that either him or Vanessa are going to be there. Holy shit! Like you start seeing like the fight, because he tracks down Bullseye after he goes to the church. Shout out the church, because they brought it back. He was not in the church whatsoever, so I
Yes.
like that they finally start to bring back those aspects of him. I mean, like the whole Catholic part of Matt Murdock is very much as important as like the Daredevil part. It's like one and one together. So the fact that they finally incorporated more of that, he has those scenes in the church, and then obviously that leads to him finding Bullseye in the apartment adjacent to the church, and you have that sequence, which in the apartment he throws the what does he end up throwing? The disc in his like kind of like Walkman thing, and Matt like just like catches it, throws it back. I mean that sequence was crazy, and I'm just thinking the entire time it's like holy shit, they're just managing to up the stakes in just this one episode alone. Like what are they gonna do? Because it's like, and I'm not the kind of person to like in the middle of an episode to pause it to see kind of how much time's left. So I didn't know like kind of where in the episode that was. There was still the entire fight sequence with Fisk and the other boxer, and I thought that sequence was done really well. It really showed like, hey, he did not stand a single fucking chance against Fisk. The only reason he even got a lick in was because Vanessa came back from that meeting with the governor, even though he told her not to be there. She showed up. Yeah. It distracted him enough to like actually get like hit, which pisses him off even more. And he probably killed that guy. I mean, rest in peace, random boxer, but he did not survive that. I'm sorry. That was a knockout punch to life. And then you get the sequence of finally Bullseye showing up and just wreaking havoc. Did you know that in the promotional stuff for this episode in particular, the shot of her getting impaled with the thing that Daniel buys from the gift shop is in the promotional stuff? No one saw it. No one noticed it. They didn't CGI it out or everything. Even when you watch the episode, you don't notice it because that shot where he like knocks it away and then you see him start to pull out the gun to like shoot Dex, and then Daredevil saves him. You're so like your eyes naturally gravitate towards like the left side of the screen that you don't notice Vanessa in the background already with the piece of that like I don't know, gift shop thing in her head already.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not until you finally see the shot once they're out of there, and he turns around and you see her like impaled with that. That was probably my favorite overall episode because it's just from start to finish, it was nonstop for me.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that is the common feeling from everybody by critics and fans. So that is the best episode, and for me, that was, doing a binge of it, going from 3. Thinking, oh, okay, I'm back. And then going to this made my perspective of the show change dramatically. I was all in after the end of this episode. And I definitely was thinking, I was like, oh, man. Because when I saw them mess up, Bullseye shot, and I was like, all right, man, Vanessa's going to live this, and they're kind of going to punk out Bullseye. I was still a little bit surprised. I was like, oh, shit. She's going to fucking die.
Yeah.
And then the fact that in the next episode, they keep her alive just to gut-wrenchingly die into him. Like, this show did what I think a lot of comic book shows, they didn't do what a lot of comic book shows struggle to do, is that you really didn't know where it was going every time. And because it has allowed to have that mature rating, they didn't just make things gory. It just, when deaths happen, it was impactful every single time this season.
Yeah.
And Vanessa's death, even though it was kind of like, man, something's going to happen to her or something to Fisk. That's kind of expectation going in the season. I still was pleasantly surprised of how they did it. And so, yeah, I agree, man. That was just a nice final scene. And then even going to the next episode, of allowing her to die like that. Just,
dude, I think the worst, like not the worst part, but like the worst part in terms of like the feeling that you get because you start to feel bad for him is that not only are we getting her like on basically her deathbed, you get like a sense of, oh, she's gonna survive this, and on top of that, you get these Netflix style flashbacks where the aspect ratio changes, the lighting changes. You get the younger versions of them, so they're wearing like their old technically preseason one fits. And you get Foggy back in this episode. So you get this whole plot with Foggy and Matt and, Foggy's childhood, like, I guess, friend's brother who has obviously issues. And then you get that, like, the kind of sauce or the soul that was missing very much in season 1 with, like, the absence of Foggy. Because Foggy definitely, when it comes to Matt, he's like his North Star to him. Like, that's like that's the soul. And when you get rid of that, that does make things a little more complicated. But this episode just showed you that he still is very much part of this show, even though he's not physically in it. So I loved that the way that they used him, as well as it's intercutting with Fisk and Vanessa. We get Wesley back. We get some like little ties to, oh, they knew Buck before that. But there's mentions of, yeah, they know people that obviously get rid of problems. One of those people is Buck, and he served with Wesley. So that's how you kind of get this like world building, and you're connecting the two shows together beautifully, and it all ends with the meeting, with the inevitable meeting from season one where he meets his future wife. So you're thinking, oh, she might survive. Then she does look like she survives, and then you start getting the hints of, oh, there's something not right here, because she starts to like ask, oh, how did we meet? Or tell me the story of how we met. He tells the story, and then she repeats herself. So then you're like, oh no, this is not good, and it just plays it like it's much. I don't know. It's so much more gut wrenching when you play it this way, rather than just like, oh, it's a sudden death, and yeah, Kingpin would be pissed, obviously. But when you play it out this way, when you add more stakes and emotion to it, you call back to how they met. It just, you start feeling something for Fisk. But at the end of the day, she ends up dying. And the way she dies, with like the flashback sequences where she kind of turns and you start seeing like the white takes it on completely over. She dies. Vincent D'Onofrio in that episode in particular gives one of his best performances. I mean, you hear his voice crack. He's like pleading for her not to go. It's sad. Like, I genuinely felt bad for him. So like, when he inevitably, in the next episode, it opens with the doctor pressing buttons where he shouldn't be pressing, and he kills him. Low key, Kingpin's kind of valid for his crash out. I'm like, listen, your wife just died. It's a valid crash out. But yeah, I mean, those two episodes back to back were just phenomenal. Do you have anything more to add about that episode in particular?
No, I mean, you took a lot of what I was going to say, especially about Foggy. I literally had it verbatim what you said in my notes about Foggy's return. Of it made him actually feel like, hey, yeah, this guy existed. By the way, he is a part of the show, and we did not get that in season one. And to piggy off what I was saying before about what I really love of how they challenge Matt's moralities and his beliefs, is Foggy was the early interpretation of that in the beginning seasons, especially first season, about him being Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a little bit of a glimpse of that in that little prequel about how Matt's talking about this criminal, and then Foggy being the one saying, no, we should do this.
Mercy.
It is our duty to do this. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh my God.
And then that cuts back with him going back for Bullseye to save him. So it's like, and then obviously it's conflicting because Bullseye kills that person that he holds dear to him, but that same person that he's remembering is saying you show mercy to those that need it, and Bullseye in that moment needed it, and it was just, that's one of those things where you're like, okay, writers, you did your thing there, and that's like, exactly. That's the perfect example of bringing someone back from the dead the proper way, like using it to progress the story, to elevate the story to another stratosphere that you just wouldn't if you were just to bring him back just because whatever. So yeah, I completely agree.
And I feel like I got closure with Foggy now as well.
Yes, because
that's what I really liked.
Right, especially with the first, because like obviously season 3 of the OG ends. No one knows why. Obviously, corporate greed and all that bullshit. And then it finally comes back, and the first thing we see is him dying, which is kind of like, oh, that was so gut wrenching too. So it's like, this definitely was like closure for him. Okay, since this is going on a bit longer than we wanted to, but I mean, this is a whole season of show that we typically do enjoy. So whatever. Episode 6 was the introduction of Jessica Jones. In this episode as well, we got like the New York riot, where Powell captures Karen at the end, And then, of course, this was also the episode where, towards the end, we get the Kingpin versus Daredevil fight in his dungeon by the rabbit in a snowstorm painting, where he fucks it up even more. So this is after Vanessa's death. This is, if you think about it, his last kind of thing that kind of tied him to Vanessa and that past life that he seemingly is losing grit, like bit by bit, and inevitably his rage, his fall back into Kingpin full mode, where he doesn't, where Matt literally pleads to him, is like, hey, this is the first time where Matt tells him, listen, I think it might be best if we just both leave, because this is only going to end one way if we don't do this. And obviously Fisk, stubborn as hell, says, no, this is what I want. And he starts wailing on him. They do some comic book shit in there, which is fucking amazing. I think his name is Frank Silvera, the stunt coordinator for this, both Born Again and now fully in this season. He does some of his best work again. I mean, he's doing these like fucking full-on body like dips, and he jumps back up using his acrobat style perfectly juxtaposition to Kingpin, much more bigger, brooding, much just like strength, just using his fists. I like that. And then obviously him tossing him around like a rag doll, throwing him into the painting, fucking it up completely. I mean, you're just seeing him just descend from being the mayor of New York that he desperately wanted to be to now just full-on Kingpin. And I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add about that specific episode.
Yeah, I'll jump in right off where I think this was one of my favorite fights, not because it was like a great fight necessarily, right, because, Matt obviously wasn't really trying to fight back, but just think back of when they last met in the Netflix series, and it was, Matt was so angry that he was trying to stop himself from killing Kingpin.
Yeah.
To now, we get a conclusion that's been growing throughout the whole of this season, where they were doing those kind of almost back-to-back shots, sometimes almost parallel shots of both Matt and Kingpin experiencing the same troubles and problems, but from different point of views, obviously. And then you lead it to this where Matt is now the one, and you kind of get, again, almost that kind of parallel scene from before seasons of, instead of trying to kill, he's trying to save him, because he knows the grief that he's feeling and that he has grown with his character. It was such a fun moment, such a really well-written moment to both build on from what has been done before and what you were doing in the season 2. It was just a nice little conclusion between the two characters that then kind of left me wondering. I'm like, all right, what are we going to get with the rest of the season then? And they still kept building and concluding episodes. And I'll let you kind of go into the next one. But yeah, I definitely agree. That was a good episode too.
Yeah. Then we get episode 7. The big highlights of this episode was Brett Mahoney, the cop from the OG show, comes back. Karen is in jail, so Fisk visits her. She stands up to him. He starts to choke her out. She does not flinch. I mean, that was a badass. Listen, Karen in this season, she felt like she actually, well, in the past, it was like she was a cool character, but she was definitely like the side character to Matt and even Foggy. Whereas now she's definitely stepped up. She was training early on in this season. You see her handle herself much, much better. And she's a full on like resistance fighter in this season. And this only built upon that. So I loved her character development in this. And then, the big thing, the controversial thing, right? Daniel, this entire season, is trying to protect BB from Buck and from Fisk, obviously, because they know and they assume that the leak is her. And we all know that he knows, but he has this affinity for her, so he doesn't want to give her up. He is thinking about doing it. He literally is about to do it, and then he's like, you know what? No, go. And he said he's going to deal with it. Then we get that sequence where I started feeling bad for him, man. He started just taking a fucking beating from Buck. Buck started to feel bad. You see it in his face where I think he even said it like in episode I think two, I think, where he starts to like kind of like tell how like the whole Fisk administration is like he's a knight and everyone's kind of like has their own role, and he even says in that sequence that he's starting to grow, you know, like to like Daniel, and you know you get those little sequences of him handing him like the New York hot dog and you know stuff like that. So you start to see that this kind of like friendship bond start to form. So when you get to that sequence in episode 7 where he does, I guess in post production, pull the trigger and shoot Daniel, and that's how it ends. It just ends, and then obviously you're like cutting, and I think you're intercutting with Matt because this is also we're also kind of getting the Karen court stuff, and then it ends with him getting shot in the leg, so he goes to the church, and he has this like kind of like prayer as you're seeing Buck point this gun at Daniel after he just gave him the beating of a fucking lifetime. And Daniel, I think he says something along the lines of like, how long until you think that you're going to be the one beaten on the ground with a gun pointed at your face? And then you start to see Buck kind of like start to kind of regret it, but he just can't pull away. And I think what they ended up doing works a hell of a lot better because, like you said, they're not afraid to take the risk. This show, it has stakes. So when you get rid of a character like that in the matter that they did, you're just building upon the character that inflicted that. So that just like made Buck much more, I don't know, intriguing, because very much in season 1 he wasn't like this big kind of like he felt like a Wesley wannabe kind of for this interpretation of the show, whereas this season they definitely fleshed out these side characters a lot more, and by doing that I felt like it just ended it in a much better way had they kept what they were originally doing, which I think was letting him live. So yeah, and it made the finale just that much more impactful. I don't know about you if you felt the same way or not.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad they had the balls to do it. That was another thing that I was like, no shot are they actually going to do that, and they did, and I was very impressed with that. And now I will say, hey, if you're critiquing this, maybe you're thinking this is a little bit too similar to like Vic from Penguin. That was what came to my mind. Okay, maybe. But you know what? I felt like it was more of a balance in between of what I saw from Penguin and Andor. I'm blanking on the guy's name, but you remember the soldier that at the very end, his last thing was hearing from Andor, "Who are you?" And it was kind of that blend, but it was Marvel's version with Kingpin in the story. I think it still worked. It was a good death, and I'm glad they had the balls to do it. I think if he would have lived in that scenario, I would have been annoyed. But if it was the only way I think I would have not been annoyed if he lived was if he went a different route and he just, he killed BB or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. That would have been another spot where I would have been like, oh shit, this guy's fully changed.
Right.
But I'm glad that if he originally was going to actually just live in that scene, there wasn't going to be a shot. He just lives and takes the beating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad, yeah, you changed that. That was the right choice.
Yeah,
it was.
I completely agree. And then of course we get to the finale. This is where Matt tells the world he is Daredevil in probably the best courtroom sequence we've had in what feels like fucking 8 years, because it's been that long since like the OG show. Wow. I think in this particular episode, Charlie gives his best performance as Matthew Murdock as a lawyer. I think, yeah, in like 8 or 9 years. This was just, he was going all in, and I love like his scene partner, obviously that being D'Onofrio as Kingpin, where he's summoned to court and he's just going back and forth with him using the law, because that's something that he learns, is that he can't beat him, the traditional way that he's beaten him before. He has to use the law. And not only that, but he has to kind of bring both sides of him to like into the spotlight, the lawyer part and the vigilante part, and that's when he does it, where he says, "I am Daredevil." That hyped me up. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what you thought about that.
Yeah. So what I liked about that scene a lot is that Kingpin clearly was assuming that this was what was going to happen, but because of the loss of Vanessa, he's deranged. He's lost his mind. He's losing it. You see it, that hubris is his ultimate downfall at the end there. He plays it. That's him literally telling um Matt when he whispers to him that knowing he only he can hear that he's so confident that he was going to win even legally speaking. And no, there was no way out the outcome. He lost the city already before any of this thing happened in the courtroom because of him. And I think if Vanessa was alive, we would have saw a different ending for sure. But because of that loss, it allows this scene to just be great. It doesn't allow it to be a very generic, mask off reveal. It was a fun reveal because of the fact that Matt Murdock, you know, established himself as a hero already. And I like the fact that, it kind of, the scene definitely helps a little bit of season one of what happened there. So it definitely works. It was a good, strong finale. And then, of course, you have all the end fights too that's going on with it in the courtroom. I do love that they gave us one last parallel of, Matt and Jessica Jones fighting. And I also did not expect that we get more Jessica Jones. I will take it. And that was so fun of Kingpin just fucking, he lost at that. If he could not handle that he actually lost to Matt, this fucking lawyer blind Daredevil guy, and he just starts killing all of them. And then he has his kind of you can't handle the truth little speech too at the end. It was solid overall finale for sure.
Yeah, I was just to add to that. I mean, obviously, we couldn't end the season two experience without having another hallway sequence. And not only did we get that, but we got
Yeah.
two of them happening at the same time. One with obviously, like you said, Daredevil and even White Tiger and Jessica, and then in the other
Yeah, she was in there.
you have Fisk just wailing on like these civilians that are like obviously pissed off at him, and he just said, "Screw it." And he's just full on just gone. There's just no sense of wanting to do like the right thing anymore, or maybe it's like he still thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's just completely clouded by grief and just everything that's just fucked up in his world right now. And then one more thing I wanted to add to that, because technically speaking, the deal was presented to him prior to him even doing that by Sheila, which I told you guys she's shown in Brand New Day as the mayor elect. So she, I'm assuming, is going to take over after Fisk is now exiled from
Yep.
New York. So yeah, I mean, just let's see. He finally takes the deal. The whole city starts wailing on him. Matt's like, no, 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 because obviously he doesn't want to make him like a martyr, so he stops them from killing him. And yeah, he's like, listen, just take the deal. Like, if you take the deal, you'll be exiled. I'll probably go to jail, and New York is safe, because he still thinks that at the end of the day, they both want the same thing. They just go about it a different way. They both love New York. They both want what's best for New York. So finally, after all that beating, both Fisk and Daredevil doing it, and obviously all those people doing it on Fisk once he's at the top of that like staircase, he finally takes the deal. He gets exiled. I mean, what a parallel shot, like at the end where he's seemingly free, but he's trapped away from where he wants to be, whereas Daredevil is seemingly in prison, but he's exactly where he feels he needs to be, because that's what he believes. He believes that if he breaks the law, he should go to jail for it. So he's where he wants to be, whereas technically Fisk is free and he's free to do whatever he wants except for New York, but he's in his own personal hell because he hates it there, because Vanessa's not there with him. That's the only thing that made it bearable, was her being there with him. And he mentioned that earlier in episode like 2 or 3. So I thought that was beautifully done. It sets up something potentially even better for season 3, because you get something like, hey, we're getting the dare like the prisoner and Cellbot D, I believe is the comic run where he's stuck in jail with people he's put in there, and we see the main guys Powell and Cole North from the AVTF in prison
Mhm.
with him. So obviously you get to play around with that. We get Luke Cage back at the end. I mean, this is
Hey, and also, by the way, he's in prison, and we saw Spider-Man in a prison with what's their
the
names
Hand.
fighting them. So the Hand, just who knows? Who knows? Might be something
Might
there.
be
Might be
something,
something.
might be nothing, because there is more than one person in New York. But yeah,
But
uh, it definitely looks that way. Especially when you have Sheila from the show showing up as the mayor elect. Yes, I know. So
and Frank.
and
So
Frank, which that's the only other thing that I had left on my notes was, hey, no Punisher this entire season, but as of this recording, it's only a few days away until his special. Because technically speaking, people were assuming that he might show up in this, and that would lead directly into the his own special. That did not happen, but it did. It does correspond with like the release schedule of it being technically the ninth
mhm.
episode. So it does come out a week after the finale of Daredevil. What are your thoughts? Did you feel like,
I'm okay with no Frank.
yeah,
I'm okay with no Frank. I think sometimes the weakest points entirety of all seasons with Daredevil is when they kind of because he was the first that they kind of steal too much time from him to allow other characters to grow. I think they already had one character in this with Jessica Jones returning, and I think they timed it well. Her screen time was good. I'm glad we did not, as much as I love Luke Cage, I am glad we did not get him at any point except for the end. So I was totally fine, and it made sense with what happened in season 1 of no Frank Castle. Totally was okay with that, and I'm curious how he's going to be in the future. But no, this was definitely way better off without him.
yeah, I completely agree. Especially when we know he's gonna get his own special. So it's like, listen, we're gonna get Frank. We're just not gonna get him in this show. We got a little bit of him in season 1, and obviously they mentioned that he's off doing his own thing at the beginning of this season. So we know he's around. He's just not in the show itself. The only thing else I believe that if you want to touch on it, if at all, Mr. Charles, he is seen in the plane with his replacement to Luke Cage, and it's Bullseye. Obviously, we learned earlier in the season that he is working very closely with Val, who obviously formed the OG Thunderbolts that are now the new Avengers. What are your thoughts about that? Having a character like that.
I'll take it. Hey, that if we get more of Bullseye, because I think he's got a great actor portraying him,
Absolutely.
I'm totally okay with that. And anything with Matthew Lillard is an absolute win. I think he did a great job fitting that kind of role, especially with the pre-established kind of surroundings of what New York was. So yeah, I think that was just overall a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, unless you have anything else to add, if you want to have any cons, like
Yeah.
big cons to this, I feel like we're ready
I'll,
to.
I'll jump to that,
Okay.
yeah, because we did a lot of positives. I'm gonna do one last positive, and that is gonna be the therapist, Heather Glenn. Dude, I fell in love with this character. I think if she either becomes a main villain in the next one, or I just need this character back. She was so fun about seeing her just change and it making sense of why she's broken down. Of Because the only person that had even possibly a chance to save her was Matt, and Matt left her. So then it was like, okay, she's just going to devolve into what's happening. I love that about her. I think the actress, I don't know her name. I should have looked it before going into it, but she was really
Margarita
good.
something, but yeah, she's
Yeah,
great.
she's super good. And then giving her an actual kind of conclusion almost with the season, allowing that time was awesome by the writers and the directors of her whole arguments about hiding behind the mask. And then she puts on the mask and sees who she wants to see in the mirror. I mean, come on now.
Yeah,
That was just so fucking fun. But that would be kind of my last pro. I'll go with some cons because there was a lot of positive we gave here.
Hmm.
For me, some of the cons is I can see an argument about if you're annoyed that Kingpin kind of got a left after all the crazy batshit stuff he did. I'm feeling like they didn't want to do anything too intense because we're getting a Spider-Man in New York. You know, with that kind of character, it's always tough to say. He's obviously been a main Daredevil guy, but that really is a Spider-Man villain. So we'll see what happens with him in the future. So I didn't feel like too much of a conclusion about him happened, but I'm not mad how it happened. I can just see those arguments. If someone really did not like it, I would not argue against you on it. For me, I know you mentioned you really like Karen. I really like Karen, but I felt like when Karen was with Matt, she kind of devolved back into just being the girlfriend role. And instead of kind of being her own strength, when she had scenes by herself, like with Kingpin, she's so fucking awesome. But that's kind of how she's been for the whole series. I think she's really at her best when Karen and Matt are just friends. And if they would have just stayed friends, I would have actually been for that because I think Matt's sacrifice with revealing who he is for a friend instead of a lover is kind of what he's been. I mean, he did so much for Foggy and when Karen was just friends. So I would have really liked it a bit even more if they just stayed friends, but I get why they're not. Um, Last kind of couple cons is McDuffie, his partner. I wish we got more of her. She kind of just was like thrown into us in season one with there, and I think she's really good. I think the actress playing is really good. I think she was kind of fun with co-piloting with Matt in that final scene.
Yeah.
But I think I wish I just got a little bit more of her to dive into who she is. And lastly, for me, Swordsman, I enjoyed his fight in there, but I don't want to see that guy again. I'm over him. He's either he has his own show or go back to where we originally found him from. I don't need him coming back. He kind of took a lot of time. He was almost getting too much for me. I'm just like, okay, man, whatever. Let's move on from you. That's just how I felt. I can see if you really liked them or not, but that's personally me. That's really kind of it for my cons.
Okay. I mean, cons. I feel. Let's see. I didn't really put too much cons, which this is kind of bad because I feel like I should, and I don't think this is a perfect season.
Hey, sometimes you can think it's a great season, but you don't really have cons. We've had movie reviews recently like that where I said it's just like, I liked it. Can't say too much bad about it,
I
but
mean, I guess just to kind of like repeat what we've said as a con, but yeah, like the first two episodes. While I don't think they're bad, I feel like there could have been some improvement to them. I don't know what
Mhm.
you could have done to like improve it, especially when you have three through like pretty much towards the end. Um, but then I think if we're here to just nitpick, um, that episode 5 when we get the flashbacks, that just showed me it's like, oh, so you guys are capable of doing kind of more of that style with like the full screen and like the different lighting and everything. I'm like,
Yeah,
like
yep. Okay, yeah, that's a good con. That's a good
I think I
con.
would prefer that. I think I prefer that
But the
style.
Disney Blue wasn't nearly as
Oh
apparent as
no,
it was in season one.
absolutely
So yeah,
no.
but I do agree with what you're saying. I do.
It was much better done. So like the present day, and I think they kind of don't want to do it because they do want to maybe play with this kind of thing in the future where it's like clearly this was the past, this is the present. So I think in that aspect, fine. But like yes, as a fan of the OG show, I do miss that like full screen and that different kind of lighting style that they had, the more like dark, gritty kind of style. But I mean, like you said, they definitely improved like the present day stuff much better. It doesn't look as choppy and as like I don't know layered with that kind of glossy kind of thing that some shots in season one had. So yeah, I agree, but still. If I'm nitpicking, I would 100% would prefer that, especially when you've shown me that you can do it, you can replicate it, but you choose not to. So that that was just my only other nitpick. I had something else that just popped in my head. Oh, Jessica Jones. Uh, I thought she was great. My only nitpick is, for the sake of the story, her powers are like coming in and out. I didn't quite jive with that at first, and it only really happened in that sequence where they basically ransacked that uh, Red Hook warehouse thing,
Yeah.
and that's about it. So like at that moment, I felt like, oh, they're descaling her for the sake of the story. But then after that, it wasn't really a problem. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm willing to overlook it. But since we're saying cons here, I would say that'd be my only other con. Um, so yeah. Anything else that pops in your head, or
Yeah, the final notes, I guess, for me, and then we can kind of maybe go into ratings, is I am worried about the show's life. Viewership was down. Don't have the numbers, but I can tell you if you look at everyone talking about it and even just the review numbers for all the popular shows going on right now, like Darth Maul's show, I'm pretty sure it has more viewership
it does?
than this season for Daredevil.
But
And it's kind of like, no, but listen to me. Listen to me. I mean, I just think that's a little crazy because
yes and
this
no.
show definitely had a big fan base and it's getting good reviews. So I'm hoping it doesn't get killed. I'm hoping it does not. I want a season 3. I want.
Oh, we are getting season 3. It's to me.
I know it's already confirmed, but doesn't mean they can't cancel it.
Well, they're already shooting it. I think as of today or as of yesterday, they've done some interviews where they said, yeah, we're halfway through season 3 already. So they've already filmed halfway through.
Hey, I don't care with the shit that we've seen with WB doing that stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
I will believe it when it comes out. So, but for me, if you don't have anything else to say, we can go to ratings.
Yeah.
When talking through this, man, my ratings have jumped a bunch. And when I actually just wrote down how I felt for the show, I think honestly the reviews have it right on spot. I'm gonna be a little lame, but I think kind of a 8.5 for me out of 10 is what I give it. I was jumping between like a 7 to an 8, 8.5 really. There's so many pros to this show, and I really did like it, and I could see myself watching it again 100%.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, mine's a little higher, of course. I mean, it just gave me more of that OG Netflix vibe. It felt like there was like a story from start to finish. It wasn't this kind of like, mess of a jumble that season 1 was. And even then, I kind of enjoyed season 1. Like, it wasn't all terrible.
No, we still talked decent.
Yes, yeah. I think I ended up giving it like somewhere in like an 8 range. This one, for me, it was an 8.8. So you're getting closer to those ratings of the OG show. Honestly, I've seen some people say good things about it. Some people are like still like loyalists to the OG show. I'm not that kind of person. I can appreciate one thing and I can appreciate another, and I don't necessarily have to pick sides on it. For me, I think this is a worthy successor. It's given me that void that I had for those 8 or whatever years that we just did not have Daredevil. I'm glad that he's back. I'm glad that they finally got a good showrunner, a good system in place where now they even get these yearly releases, which we know previously that's been a problem with Disney, where we get like a show and then season 2 doesn't come out for 2 or 3 years, which is nuts. So I'm glad that they got this thing going. And like you said, I hope that they don't kill it off, because yes, viewership was down. I saw that. Even when you go on Disney Plus right now and you see like the top shows, it's like 4th right now, which is crazy. It just had its finale. So yeah, I would implore you, if you guys are a fan of Marvel, you guys are a fan of the OG show, if you haven't given it the chance yet, definitely give season 2 a chance. It definitely would fill that void for you if you were a fan of the OG show and you just enjoy these like more gritty, more stakes involved kind of show. This one is a good one. I would implore you to give it a chance if you haven't already. So yeah, anything else, or are we good to just wrap it up and call it a day?
I think we'll call it.
All right. Well, if you guys haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let us know what are your highlights from season 2, because there were a lot of them, especially in the middle sections. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next one.